Alright, so Zenless just posted a big quality of life update video in regards to all of the big upcoming changes to the game. Now you guys are probably thinking that we actually got a lot of changes and stuff announced within the 1.2 live stream, but there's actually been a lot more information being presented here within this because it is 34 minutes of just us being able to listen to the devs talk with one another and provide us all of the updates and stuff that we need to know what's coming to Zenless. Not only within 1.2 but all the way up until 1.4. And there's some really big changes that we need to talk about and discuss overall and see how the community feels, because I have seen some pretty conflicting opinions, especially about one particular change that we're going to start off with, which is TV modes are going to be receiving another massive overhaul. Early game for ZZZ is going to be reworked to remove TVs or to have at least a very little amount of them within the main story. This has been the big polarizing thing that a lot of people have been very 50-50 on about when it comes to ZZZ and the future of the game, because we've gotten to the point now where a lot of people that stick around with the game and actually enjoy it, we honestly don't really mind the TV system overall. I'm someone that understands why they're more than likely doing this, because I do agree that the early game of Zenless is pretty rough to get into if you are a new player because of the amount of TVs that are implemented within the system. Now, when thinking about that, when I honestly had it in the back of my head of them we're probably going to overall change this or fix this within the future, I figured this change was going to come at some point. I didn't overall think that they were going to completely remove the overall system, which we still don't specifically know if they're going to be removing everything. We just know that they will be removing a good chunk of aspect of TV within early game. And how they overall execute and handle this will essentially determine how people will finally feel once these implementations are going to be made. But what has a lot of people really scared is that these implementations they want to improve upon for it have to be done by 1.4, or their goal is for it to be finished by 1.4, which is in 2 months. And if you guys understand, you know that's a good chunk of the game being removed, and they have to essentially rework and implement another way in order to tell the story for people to still understand how the overall story of Zenless works leading up into future updates. And again, how they overall execute that, implement that is going to be very important, because if it's done poorly, this could be something that they have to renege and go back and actually figure out if it was the correct decision for them to do, or if they should actually go about it a different way. They also mentioned that for the future that main story would no longer include TV mode at all anyway, and this is another big thing that people are kind of 50-50 on. Again, with me, I'm very like in the middle when it comes to the TV mode. When I'm doing it in very passing or very small amounts, it's actually not that bad to me. It's honestly pretty fun in some aspects as well, depending on the little mini game mode and stuff I'm playing with it, like with the little TV event that we had just passed within 1.1. That was actually kind of fun to do for a little bit, but once it did start to happen over and over again, it kind of did drag on for me. But to have this completely removed within the main story, again, they're gonna have to figure out the way to have like a nice balance for this, which I think for like future updates and stuff, it'll be pretty easy for them, since they're already designing these stories around the characters without even the idea of implementing TV mode. But the fact of having to rewrite older story that had TV mode in mind is going to be a very weird change to see how they overall make that essentially a smooth progression. They also said that when removing TV mode for the future, they're going to also be replacing it with story stages. I don't know if that's essentially going to be like how they set it up with the Jane story, or if there's going to be more interesting things or creative things to do with these overall story stages replacing TV mode. I want to know how you guys overall feel within the comment section below about this big chunk as well, because again, this is where the community feels very torn and split on how they overall feel. I also have a video planned with my boy Azro Vanity to overall talk about this discussion in the future, so be on the lookout for that, because I know he's a big fan of the TV mode, and a lot of the audience that he has built are as well. And I've also seen a lot of people on social media express their feelings about it and actually overall coming around to it and enjoying it since we've been playing the game for the past few months. A lot of people feel that them making this change kind of takes away the charm and charisma of Zenless, which it does, because that was a big core of it. But I do understand why they overall made these changes, because they felt like that a lot of the implementations for the game was pretty rough for people that was trying to get into it, and they wanted to make that smoother for future players coming into, and possibly bringing in some players that dropped the game and want to pick it back up again. Past that though, a lot of these other changes that I'm about to bring up are actually really massively good, and everybody overall agrees that these are really nice changes coming to the game. And one of them is material farming and economy is going to be improved. Buying coffins and dismantling W engines will no longer cost pennies. We're going to be getting a backup battery system added, which that was mentioned within 1.2. Material drop rates across the board are going to be increased and improved. And we learned that notorious hunt materials are going to be attaining a new way for us to grind and obtain them. This backup battery system is going to change lives for everyone, even for me. I'm someone that always doesn't have time to log into the game because I'm working on content. I don't always have the time to log into the game, or sometimes I just forget to log in for the day. And having that feeling of missing out on battery and stuff that I could have used to upgrade my characters feels really rough. So having a backup battery system coming to the game is something that we very much needed, and I'm glad it's being implemented for us. The material draw rates being increased, big plus, love to see that. And the notorious hunt materials having a new way to be obtained. I believe from my understanding how we're going to be able to do this is that even if you do all 3 clears for the week, you're able to spend battery to clear once again for additional drops. Now I don't know if there's any form of limitation on how many times you can do this, or you can do this as many times as you want if you have battery. If that's the case, we're going to be able to again help ourselves build our characters at the efficient manner that we want to, and having more control of how we're able to build our characters at a faster rate is always a nice improvement. Next is probably some of my favorite big changes that they're doing to the game, and I think it's going to push it in a really good direction, and that is the overall combat change that's coming to the game, and it's going to be on a wide scale. They mentioned that we are going to be getting brand new elites and boss enemy types coming into the future, which is really good to hear because we need a lot more variety in enemy types, which I know we're going to be getting some new ones within 1.2, but we need more to come, not only within just like every other patch. I believe at least adding 1 or 2 enemy types every patch would be pretty nice, even if it's like small changes to how current enemies are, just to make them slightly different, maybe like a recoloring or something. As long as they act and compute in a different way, it'll make the game a lot more interesting and exciting. They also mentioned that they're going to be optimizing the current enemies in the game to be a lot more varied within the combat experience. This is something that we have been constantly preaching about for the game in order to improve the overall combat experience of the game, because everybody felt that the combat was too easy. But as time has gone by, we've seen the Zenless team improve the combat of the game. The game is actually starting to get a bit more challenging for us now, and it's overall bringing the entertainment value of playing combat sections within the game, making it a lot more interesting, which I love so much. They're also going to be improving the lock-on system for the game, which if you guys played it, you know that lock-on system is very finicky. Sometimes it works and sometimes it has its issues. It's not a super big deal for me, but it's something that does need to be improved. I know with more improvements to it, it'll make the overall experience a lot smoother. They're also going to be improving the experience for my mobile players. They're going to be adding a switch back button so that you're able to switch to previous characters. I didn't know that you guys weren't able to switch to previous characters before, but luckily it looks like this is all changing, and you guys are going to have the same access as us on mobile. And lastly, the biggest change coming to the combat is the decimal system, and ultimates will be receiving massive changes to the point that ultimates will not be shared by the team anymore, but by per character. This means that only instead of having 1 ult for the team, you're gonna have 3 ultimates. That's insane. That means they're gonna need to be able to definitely buff up the enemies they're gonna be fighting, either scaling back the damage a little bit or making the overall content of the game a bit more difficult, like we stated earlier, because we are gonna be able to drop massive damage onto people like it's nothing. I'm super excited for this change because this is going to be a very drastic change to how the overall meta and probably how teams are going to be built based on the ultimates we're going to be able to use within different team comps. This is a very drastic change and a very good change, and I'm actually really excited to see how this will work within the live server once we get the chance. And lastly, which is I think is my second most excited changes coming to the game, which is the overall hub world and player experience. We'll be seeing some massive improvements. First off is that we're going to be able to use our favorite agents in the hub world coming soon, starting with Caesar and Bernice within 1.2, and then all agents will be available in 1.4. This is something that everybody was hoping was going to be available within the game upon a release, but this is something that they had to slowly work upon and improve on as the game has been going along. Now, a lot of you guys have probably been thinking, why is it taking so long for something like this to be implemented when all they should have to do is code it so that the characters can be used within the hub, where it should be a drag and drop type of thing, should be really fast to do. But in actuality, they explained that a lot of the ways that characters act within the hub world compared to the combat zones are very differently. So they have to essentially apply brand new animations to the characters to operate how they should within the hub world, because if you see the overall vibe of each zone, you said the hub world is very inviting. It's supposed to be a very casual experience, very chill, walk around, interact with NPCs, talk, blah blah blah, while the combat experience is supposed to be very energetic, hype, fast movement, and all that good stuff. So when having those two different vibes, you need to have essentially the characters act and have different forms of animation that represents that they are in essentially two different types of areas that provoke two different forms of emotions. This will essentially increase our immersion within these spaces, which is very important when playing these type of games, since immersion is always a great feeling to essentially feel like that you're in the game and playing these characters and overall enjoying them. They also said that they had some issues with characters being able to traverse within the space. For example, with Ben, they literally said Ben is too big to move in a lot of the spaces within the game, because there are some smaller sections like going through alleyways or even fitting through doors. Ben literally can't do that. So they have to adjust the world in a way so that no matter the character's size and how they move, they need to be able to traverse the world with no issues. So they have to find out new ways to fix this, but all of this should be ready to go within 1.4. They also stated that we're going to be getting new city functions and daily life experiences will be improved in the future to help the world feeling empty. This is an issue that the hub world has just a little bit when it comes to the world of Zenless, because after you finish a lot of the stuff within the new patch, there's honestly not too much to do within the other open world other than check off stuff on your dailies. After that, the hub worlds are pretty empty. They have honestly nothing else for you to do outside of just collect side missions and talk to NPCs and go to stores. So they want to improve the overall function to make the daily experience within the hub world mostly overall feel a lot more lively, which always welcoming. They did mention a new feature I'm super excited for, which is a new accompaniment will be added to the game to let you meet up with the agents in the city. This will allow the player to invite the agent to be able to walk around and traverse the hub world together in this new mode. This overall just enhances the dating aspect within Zenless and kind of bring us even closer to a more personal feel with ZZZ. I love being able to interact with these characters, invite them, getting to know them more, and forming relationships with them, and that's one of my favorite things they're doing within the game, with me being a big Persona fan. I love seeing this and being able to be improved upon and adding more features for us to do, and just being imagining to be able to traverse the world, which is having you and your date going around the city and doing things together. That's just going to be super cool to see. And then lastly, they said we're going to be getting a new game resource management function in order to make it a lot more easier to manage our resources. But overall, that is everything for the new changes coming to Zenless. Like I said before, all of these changes were essentially greeted very well by the community. Everybody loves a good majority of them so much. But like I stated in the beginning, the removal of the TV mode from the story and the reconstruction of the early game with essentially removing TV mode completely is kind of rubbing some fans the wrong way. I'm very in the middle on it because, again, at some angles, I do love the TV mode. I think it is fun and interactive and enjoyable to do. But at other angles, I do feel like that it is very cumbersome. It does overstay its welcome at times, but they have made overall good improvements that makes it not as bad as it was when the game released, and especially within the closed betas. As long as it maintains to be a part of the ZZZ identity and some from away, I think that they can find a middle ground where they still satisfy the people and the players that stick around with the game, while also making the onboarding experience a lot easier for people to get into the game and overall stick with it. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below how you guys overall feel about a lot of these changes coming to the game. I want to have a dialogue. I want to see the discussions in the comment section. I appreciate you guys and all your support. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and always remember to believe in you that believes in yourself. I'll see you guys in the next one.